Good morning on this Sunday, June 2nd, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. A historic moment in this country. For the first time, a former president of the United States is now a convicted felon. Also, an Atlanta activist has won the Libertarian nomination for president. And does Congresswoman Lucy McBath have her eyes on the governor's mansion? Melita, Phil, Theron, and Janelle are all here. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
Former President Donald Trump was found guilty on all counts in an unprecedented criminal trial, making him the first former president to be convicted on criminal charges. Former President Trump has been found guilty of falsifying business records in an attempt to bury stories about extramarital affairs that arose during the 2016 presidential campaign. Let's get to it. Okay, viewers, get your coffee ready, sit back. Here we go. Phil, we'll start with you. I mean, it didn't take long for jurors to come back with a decision, and I think we all thought, well, that doesn't bode well for the defense.
Well, I think that's right, and this is unprecedented. We're going into uncharted waters. I think it's a sad commentary. It's very damaging. Let's forget about Donald Trump and Joe Biden for a minute. Let's think about the impact on America and the presidential election. You've got perhaps half the country celebrating this, and you've got the other half angry, and that is not good for our society. It certainly is not good when you, and the national commentators can deal with this, but I'll just say this, that when you've got a Manhattan, a left-wing district, you've got a left-wing Biden donor judge, you've got prosecutors, one of whom just left the Biden Justice Department. It was rigged, and I think I want to commend the liberal legal commentators that have been on TV who all of a sudden, even on CNN, a liberal network said, this is not good. These are norms that are being violated by the judge. He's part of the prosecution. Having said that, though, the Supreme Court must step in my opinion. I'm not a legal expert, obviously. I'll leave that to the constitutional attorneys. But I think that in Gore v. Bush in 2000, the Supreme Court did step into a state case. The Trump lawyers are going to appeal. And so I think that actually politically, we can talk about this more. I think it helps Trump. He's the first modern day political martyr.
Okay, we're going to get to the political fallout. But Theron, first, I just want to get your thoughts on the verdict.
Well, I'm going to first start off by somewhat agreeing with my friend Phil that this is bad for the country, all right? And you do have a certain sector of the country that support Donald Trump and will feel that this has emboldened their cause. And then you have other people in the country that are saying, you know, good, this guy who basically was brought up against these criminal charges finally got what he deserves. But let's talk about why we're here. The reason we're here is not because of what the Republicans are saying is a rigged criminal justice system. This is the same criminal justice system that they've been actually praising, that they're going after Hunter Biden next week in Delaware, right? So they're not having problems with that justice system. But the reason we're here is because you had a man who had a history of shady deals, who had a history of a racist practice in his business, who became a candidate for president, destroyed the Republican Party as we knew it, did a lot of corrupt things while he was running for president, and it was 34 felonies put against him that a jury of his peers, 12 individuals, 6 alternates, decided that he was guilty on 34 felony charges. So what's unprecedented about this is that the first time in our 240-year history, we have a former president as a convicted felon. Now, whether he goes to jail, the sentencing will be on July 11th. He could get up to 4 years on each count. And let me just say this for our Democrats, we gotta be careful, which is what Phil noted. He may get off. He may just get probation. But I think that you look at what happened to Marilyn Mosby in Baltimore, right? A woman who now has got to go 12 months to jail. I think she'll have 2 to 3 years of home confinement for taking money out of her account, using it to try to pay some stuff to help her family. And now she's been prosecuted by this justice system. She's going to jail. I think that what this showed, Lori, is that no one in this country, including a former president, is above the law.
Janelle, that's a lot to unpack there. I think what I'm thinking about is where do we go from here? Because now, I mean, there's no talk of any issues. We're heading into November. There's no talk of anything that's happening in this country except for these trials and these cases. And then, okay, if Republicans get in power, then is it the Republicans who do this next to a former president? Where do we go from here?
I'm glad I went after Phil and Theron because I heard things that gave me pause, you know. I agree with you 1,000%. Where do we go from here? I do believe this is a sad day in America. I think it's a sad day in America because we are now in a position where hypocrisy is on display. To your point, Theron, yes, there were times where we were advocating and pushing for the justice system as Republicans, and now we're saying it's something's wrong and that this is, and it just shows hypocrisy, in my opinion. I think that what we have to do in changing our messaging is saying that the justice system in and of itself as America is fine. People are corrupt. There are people that make these bad decisions. And if you don't like it, we, the people, have the power to get rid of these individuals. We do not have to support it. But what we got to do is we got to take some responsibility as voters, because we are here because we as voters decided that we wanted to we allowed these candidates to bypass processes. We allowed Joe Biden to campaign in his basement and people still voted for him. We allowed Donald Trump to skip primary debates and we still voted for him. These are, as voters, we have to take some onus and some responsibility on ourselves. And I know we're going to continue the conversation, but that's where I stand on this. I want us to feel empowered to do better.
Melita.
Well, I think obviously there's very little about this whole situation that's cause for celebration. We can celebrate the fact that the rule of law holds, that a jury of 12 ordinary citizens can even hold a former president accountable. And we need to be grateful to that jury in New York for doing what Republican senators refused to do when Congress returned articles of impeachment against Donald Trump. These ordinary citizens, a jury of Donald Trump's peers, protected the rule of law and held him accountable after a life where he had used the power of money and privilege combined with a lack of a moral compass to bend, break, or ignore rules for his entire life.
Well, let's look ahead to November. We've seen in the polling all of these cases against Trump have actually helped him with the base. But the critical question is, and especially in a state like Georgia, we are a battleground. What about these independents? We've seen in polling too, they say, you know what, if he's a convicted felon, it gives me reason to pause. Yeah. Where are we with this?
That's tricky. I'm wondering about that as well. I did some research and I saw that in June of 2020, Biden was leading at 50% and Trump was at 38% at this point here. The fact that they're neck and neck is a concern for me. When the economy is falling apart, we have a problem. I think once again, I hate to say this, but once again, we have to vote for the lesser of two. And that's where people are tired. Independents are tired of sitting in that position, but that's where we are. So now my reach to voters is, if you can't vote based on character, vote based on capability. And when we look at the two side by side, it appears that Trump may be more capable of getting us back on track when it comes to where we are in the state of the economy than Biden. But that's just where we are. I hate to say it. I wish I had a better message.
Theron, what about November, particularly the Georgia independents? We've seen them sway left a little bit, more moderate, in recent times with the election of Senators Ossoff and Walker.
Look, Democrats.
Warnock.
Senator Warnock and Senator Ossoff. We won in this state because we rebuilt a Biden coalition, and then we also had a Warnock coalition, had an Ossoff coalition, and a lot of those people who made a significant portion of that coalition were these independent, moderate voters. Lori, I'm so glad you brought up polling. We sat here about 2-3 months ago. AJC did a poll, and they asked Republicans and Democratic voters, if Donald Trump is convicted of a crime, if he's a convicted felon, will you vote for him? And I think less than maybe a third of them, maybe like a third of them said they would vote for him, but the 2/3 said they would not vote for him. So this is going to be damaging for his campaign. But I just want to repeat what President Biden said real quick. He said, here's the truth. Despite a jury finding Donald Trump guilty yesterday, so we taped on Friday, this came out yesterday, there's still only one way to keep Donald Trump out of office, and that's the ballot box. And I just want to encourage everyone, don't get distracted, particularly Democrats. If you don't want him to be president, you've got to make sure you go out and vote, because his side is definitely fired up.
Phil, 2 words that we are going to hear from here to November: convicted felon, over and over again.
You know what? And that's what the Democrats are going to do, and that's fine, because look at the fundraising gift that was given to Donald Trump since that verdict. It shows perhaps half the country, again, is outraged over this miscarriage of justice, making a misdemeanor for a nonviolent crime somehow become a felony and then somehow become 34 counts. Again, legal analysts that are impartial say this has got to be overturned. What's to stop, Lori, to your point, Republican DAs and prosecutors now going after former President Obama for past offenses, alleged offenses, like killing people with drones, et cetera, et cetera. This could get totally out of hand. As for Georgia, it's going to, I think, help Trump with the center, because yes, the economy, I do disagree on one thing, Lori. I think the economy is still going to be a big issue along with this trial, and that's where Trump has the advantage. And so I think the polls will sway back and forth. You'll probably see some liberal pollsters say all of a sudden magically that Biden's numbers are up, but I'm not going to listen to all of that. I'm going to see what happens in states like Georgia, where right as we get into October, where the swing will be.
Can you wrap it up here quickly, Melita?
Well, I believe that the center will bend towards justice, and they'll find that with Biden and a vote for Biden.
All right, we'll leave it there, folks. Up next, Atlanta activist Chase Oliver is back on the ballot, this time as the presidential nominee for the Libertarian Party.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
Atlanta activist Chase Oliver won the Libertarian nomination for president. The third parties have rarely been competitive in U.S. presidential elections. However, the party's decision is gaining more attention this year due to the rematch between former President Donald Trump and Democratic President Joe Biden, as Janelle says, the lesser of two evils. But this could hinge again on small vote margins in a handful of contested states, including right here in Georgia. How do you see this playing out? Like, who does he take votes away from, Janelle?
I'm going to say congratulations to Chase, because he's worked hard to get to this point. I think there's a little bit of libertarian in most of us. There's something that we do not want the government to be a part of, right? So that is a little bit of our libertarian. I don't think this is going to make a huge difference. I think people are kind of set. I think we have already kind of drew into our corners. However, when it comes to how he presents himself, how he rolls out, as long as he's sitting there, he's going to pick up some votes. So who's he going to pull from? Unfortunately, typically they pull from Republicans when it comes to libertarians, but I don't know if I see that happening this time.
Melita?
Well, he will be on the ballot in 37 states, and in the race, the U.S. Senate race with Warnock and Walker, his 2.1% of the votes forced the runoff, which Senator Warnock thankfully won. He has a very liberal platform, and he was the first openly gay U.S. Senate candidate in Georgia history. And he also wanted to adopt federal civil rights protections for the LGBT community. So that might allow him to peel off some votes from both sides of the aisle.
All right, let's move on. A Republican member of the Fulton County Board of Elections has filed a lawsuit against the county, the board, and the county's election director, claiming that she had been denied access to key election information. Now, Julie Adams filed the lawsuit last week after she says the board and the Fulton County elections director consistently prevented her from performing her duties as a board member. Phil, does she have a case?
I think she has every right to file the lawsuit. In fact, we were just talking on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I think we all agreed that we have to have transparency in our elections, and especially in Fulton County that has a 25-year plus record of mismanagement and fraud, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it seemed reasonable, just reading from media accounts, what she's asking for, and I don't understand why she wasn't given that information as a board member.
Theron Adams is also refusing to certify the primary election results.
You know, unfortunately, Lori, when you were a journalist, and Phil and Melita and Janelle, you guys all been in campaigns, right? And you're there and you work so hard. And I think it's really just unfair. I'm going to take two angles. I think it's unfair to these folks, whether you won or lost this race that we just had in the primary, for her to refuse to certify the results. It's just honestly disrespectful to them, especially the people who are in runoffs and the people who won and lost. Secondly, is that unfortunately, we're just at a point in this country where we have folks like Ms. Adams who will continue to sort of lessen the faith that people should have in our voting systems, right? And I think I agree with Phil, is that we want people to have faith that the elections are safe, secure, and accurate. But when you file these lawsuits and don't necessarily maybe back it up with any claims that are actually factual, like what happened, why are you not doing it? And it's got to be a reason why the Fulton County Elections Office, which, let's give them a little credit, guys, they've done better. They've come a long way than they were just 2, 3, 4 years ago. And so there's got to be a and why she's on the board and Janelle's going on the state board. That definitely carries some weight. Why they're not giving her the information, they need to explain that. And it's probably because of what she's asking for is either not relevant to the election that we just had, or it's just not, she's not backing up with any facts. And so I just think that, we got to really make sure that we all come together to.
But it's a good question, though. Why aren't they giving the reason?
Well, they need to answer that.
Yeah, right. That's my point and her point.
But following laws to do so. But I think that we got to continue to come out with and we have a responsibility to make sure that people feel like when they vote that the votes are being counted accurately.
Janelle, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so as of right now, I haven't been sworn in yet, so I'm just an appointed board member. But that being said, I agree with Phil. She has every right to file a complaint, but every citizen has every right to file a complaint, to scrutinize, to question. It is our constitutional right. So if you have an issue with it, then you have to take that up with the Constitution.
Melita?
Well, I just think that it's going to be interesting to see how far this litigation goes and what kind of confidence level voters can come into November with for the entire election system in Georgia.
All right.
But let me say this, it's bad for both parties, all right? Both parties. If people don't believe that the machines, that the process, the votes are being counted accurately, then that's going to be apathy, and we don't need that. We want people to feel like they can go and vote.
Well, I would agree with that, but I still think, just like Stacey Abrams did and like Donald Trump has done, you question yeah. election results, and I don't have any problem with that. And we can talk about this another time, but I think on Election Day you had a lot of problems around the state. Bibb County, Coffee County, Melita and I can talk about that all day long.
But they're giving her information. She said that they're not, that's what I don't know her, but I want to quote her. They said that they're refusing to give her key information. So it's not that they're not giving her information.
Well, she should have key information.
Whatever she's asking
yeah,
for.
I'm just
saying. She oversees the staff.
I think this.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I think this goes back to what I was saying earlier about being Americans, right? Like, as Americans, we should be excited when the people that we place in these positions actually do their job and do their due diligence. That's why we're placing them there. So I look at this like, yeah, it may be an inconvenience, but there's nothing wrong with wanting to make sure that it's accurate, because to your point there, it protects both parties.
And I want to clarify, the complaint is the March 12th presidential preference primary, and she filed it on May 22nd. So I guess that's what's in question, right? So I want to correct myself. Yeah. But she says that she can't get this key information because she's unable to hold her oath of office. And so, we'll see.
Well, this kind of confusion happens in corporate boards, in nonprofit boards. The delineation between what is a paid staff responsibility and what is a governing board responsibility. And so that seems to be part of what is at play here. What are the staff jobs in the Department of Elections and what is the board job?
All right. That's a good point. Thank you all. Up next, could Congresswoman Lucy McBath be eyeing a run for governor of Georgia? We'll discuss next.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
In an interview with the AJC, Congresswoman Lucy McBath says she's open to a 2026 run for governor here in Georgia. Melita, what are you hearing about potential candidates, and what do you think about this?
Well, I think it's very interesting, but I also think that the donors, regular donors to her campaign, particularly those in the gun control movement, want to keep her in Congress, because if Congress shifts to a Democratic majority, there are 5 Democrats in Georgia's congressional delegation, but 3 of them are men who are older than 70. And so Lucy McBath has 3 terms of seniority, and it might be more valuable for the state and for those who have supported her in the past to keep her in Congress and take advantage of that seniority.
Janelle?
I feel like black men can't win in the Democratic Party. Michael Thurman has been throwing things out there. He's kind of testing the water, and I think we all was a little bit intrigued. I was intrigued. I know Kelvin was like, man, I would like to meet him. I would like to see, what's up with him. That being said, now we have Lucy McBath jumping in there, and that means possibly, and then Stacey Abrams is going to get behind her, and so is Nikema Williams, and it just feels like every time a black guy tries to make a move in the Democratic Party, the black women come in and say, nope, it's not your turn, it's our turn, it's always our turn. So I don't know. I mean, I would like to know, what has she done? I mean, how is she going to run a statewide budget when I have no clue what you have done for a living? I mean, I don't know. I have questions.
I was going to move on, but I can't, Farron.
Well, I appreciate the
Where's the
support.
lie?
Where's the lie? Yeah, I appreciate the support for black men. However, no, Congresswoman Lucy Metcalf deserves an opportunity to think about whether or not she wants to run for governor. She's earned it. You got to remember, back in 2018, she defeated an incumbent Congresswoman, Karen Handel, right? And it was one of the bright spots that we had in 18 because Stacey Abrams lost to Brian Kemp. And she's gone to Congress and been a very, very productive and good Congresswoman that has taken an issue around gun violence, and she lost her son due to gun violence, and she can talk about a lot of other things. So she's battle tested, and I think she has a lot of name recognition. You got to put her in a conversation.
All right, well, we're going to move on because there's lots of time to talk about the governor's race. Well, if South-avowed Democratic Socialist Gabriel Sanchez wins in November against Republican Diane Jackson in Cobb County, he could be the first Democratic Socialist in the Georgia House. Phil, how does his candidacy play out with Democrats in Georgia? How do they walk the line here?
Well, it was a shocker when we saw this 28-year-old, 29-year-old waiter who's a self-proclaimed proud socialist beat a liberal Democrat. And I think that this plays into the fact that there's going to be deep divisions even further in the Democratic Party in the state. You've had already, I see some of the Democratic legislators said, oh, we have to work with this person. Work with this person. Socialism is the first cousin of communism. I mean, their motto is not in God we trust, it's in the state we trust. And so all of this is going to try to push, and that's what this man wants to do, push the Democratic Party even more further to the left, more radical. I don't know how the Democratic establishment is going to deal with him, but it certainly does play into the Republican narrative, and I've said this for years, the Democratic Party nationally and then the state is sliding towards socialism.
Melita, how do Democrats handle this?
Well, there are Democrats who are concerned because of the differences between being a Democratic Socialist and being a Democrat. And just because the Democrats have a big tent doesn't mean that someone who used tactics to enter the tent, because he did some pretty awful mailings against Terry Anulowicz, some things that many Democrats found highly unacceptable. That doesn't mean that once he gets in the tent, they have to be nice to him. And the other thing is, to the point of Phil's point of kind of wrapping that label around other Democrats, there are some labels that Republicans may need to own if they start trying to paint all Democrats with the same brush they would paint him with.
And that will be up for discussion in future shows, I'm sure. Up next, winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
I don't always do this, but I have a prop to show this week. May was Mental Health Awareness Month, and I was able to work with Georgia's Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities to strike out the stigma with the Atlanta Braves at Truist Park. Wednesday, Governor Brian Kemp and First Lady Marty Kemp were also on hand to really spread the word about the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Mental health is a key issue for the First Lady, Marty Kemp. So overall, it was just a really nice evening, and it was a way to get the word out about 988. And Commissioner Kevin Tanner threw out the ceremonial pitch. So, Melita.
Well, I wanted to express condolences to the family members and friends of Georgia's first ever female appeals court Chief Justice, Dorothy Toth Beasley. She was a legal trailblazer, arguing 5 cases before the United States Supreme Court as an assistant attorney general for Georgia in the early 1970s. That was a day when there weren't as many women lawyers. She was the first female Fulton State Court judge in '77, and then the first female on the Georgia Court of Appeals in '84. She was an inspirational trailblazer for many, many young women in the legal field who followed in her footsteps.
All right, Phil.
Well, I agree with you. I actually interviewed Justice Beasley, and what you said, it was very appropriate. I think the loser has to be, as I mentioned earlier in the show, the United States of America, with this rigged trial in New York, with the judge destroying all norms. I hope there's a quick appeal. I hope the Supreme Court comes in, because it's causing great damage to our system in America.
Theron.
I want to first offer my condolences to the family of Hattie Dorsey. She unfortunately passed this week. She was the pioneer of affordable housing in Atlanta, led an organization that was very specific about trying to make sure that housing was affordable. But I also want to congratulate Camille Love, who retired as the Director of Cultural Affairs at the City of Atlanta. She served there for 25 years. Camille, I didn't think you had been there that long. You definitely look very, very young. Definitely want to wish her well. And then lastly, Sonia Allen. We didn't talk about this. She defeated an incumbent in a Democratic primary in Cobb County for district attorney. And so she's someone that a lot of Democrats are paying very close attention to, and just want to congratulate her and others who won their campaigns.
Right. And Janelle, this is a
Yes.
little bit different winners and losers. We're going to miss you. Congratulations to be appointed to the State Elections Board by Speaker John Burns. So
Yes.
I know we wanted to give you a chance to talk to your viewers.
Yes. Before that, I just have to say congratulations to the Metro Reentry graduates. They all graduated from Ashland University. They got their GED certification. So shout out to Warden Alan Dills and just everyone there, the staff, the mentors, all of y'all. I know you watch. Love y'all so much. All right. Yes, I will be taking a sabbatical from the show once again due to this appointment. But these appointments, much like the Department of Corrections, has been food for the soul. You know, these are the times when you get to give up yourself and take this time to dedicate it to the people of Georgia. I look forward to doing that. I look forward to being nonpartisan. And yeah, that was a dig at you, Theron. But but no, and Phil, I thank you. I would not be sitting in this chair without you, and I thank you so much for that, for seeing something in me that everyone else now can see. So thank you. Thank you to all of you for challenging me, always making me step up to the top. And I still have my podcast, Fox National, and I'll be dropping stuff on the Peach Pundit. So thank you.
We'll leave it there. Make it a great week.